I am going to begin by introducing today's program and presenter. Many of us, I think myself included, always, we go to the doctor, we get a prescription. It is typically, okay, they say penicillin or amoxicillin, but what company are they actually giving you? Are they giving you a generic, or are they giving you the original brand name drug manufacturer? And sometimes you actually hear that the doctor says, no, I want you to have the brand name one. I don't want you to have the generic. So today we're going to have a presentation by Dr. Don Gerber from Midwestern University, together with some of the students that are all pharmacy students, and God willing, our future leaders and pharmacy. They're going to be in charge of all our prescriptions and good decision-making processes with the drugs that you take, and the ones that they say, hey, don't mix that with the drug you're already taking. So their education is obviously very important. Because we all will rely on it at some point in time in our lives. So without any further introduction, we've already had Dawn and her students on before. I'm going to spotlight Dawn. And Dr. Gerber, thank you very much for joining us today, and again for a most informative presentation that will be.
Perfect. All right.
So before you begin, just one thing, since you're using, okay, just make sure that your menus aren't covering the slides, because they will come up as boxes.
Yes, we actually talked about that, and I'm trying to figure out how to do that. So
you're good now. You're good now. But if you see a box in the middle of the screen, it's probably blocking something for us as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that heads up. I've turned off what I think are all my pop-ups. So I'm hoping that that is the case. So we are very excited today to talk to you about, are brand name medications different than generic medications? And we have created this together. So there are 4 Doctor of Pharmacy students who worked on the presentation under my supervision. And then we're going to be presenting by Janine and Kyle. And just by luck of the draw, Kyle also participated in presenting the presentation last week on vaccinations, and he will be presenting this week as well. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Janine. And Janine, I'm just going to give you a friendly heads up. Make sure you speak slowly, please.
Thank you. I will do my best. Greetings, and thank you all again for being here today. Kyle and I are so excited to present today's topic on brand name versus generic medications. Throughout our presentation, we will highlight 5 common myths about generic drugs. Myth number 1, generic drugs are not as safe. Myth number 2, generic drugs are not as effective. Myth number 3, generic drugs take longer to work than brand name drugs. Generic drugs, myth number 4, generic drugs must cost less because they don't work as well. And myth number 5, generic drugs are not FDA approved. With all these myths being said, we can say with certainty that they are most definitely false. Next slide. Next slide, please. So what is a generic drug? Well, one thing to note is that they are also known as generic substitutes, just a different name for the same concept. Additionally, they are produced after the patent has expired. What's a patent, you may ask? Think of it as calling dibs or reserving the right to be exclusive producer of that drug for a certain period of time. When that time is up, different manufacturers are then permitted to make that same drug. Furthermore, generic drugs must be bioequivalent, therapeutic equivalent copies of brand name drugs. Wow, that was a mouthful. But basically, this means that generic drugs must have the same effect on the patient's therapy as it would with brand name. Also, some drugs may have different generic versions. I'm sure that many of you have seen aisles and aisles of medications with dozens of generic versions. Sometimes it can be a little confusing, but always know that your local pharmacist will always be there to answer any of your questions. And lastly, generic drugs are marketed under a non-proprietary name, which just means that its name is unregistered as a trademark. Next slide, please. So there are 6 areas in which a generic drug must match its brand name counterpart. Number 1, safety. This means that generic drugs have the same known risks as brand name drugs. Number 2, quality. Generic drugs must have uncontaminated ingredients, the same amount of drug, and meet manufacturing standards. Number 3, strength. Generic and brand name drugs must have equal amounts of ingredient. Number 4, dosage form. This means that generic drugs must be in the same physical state as the brand name drug. For example, tablets, liquid suspensions, and ointments are all types of dosage forms. Number 5, route. This is where the drug is being given. For example, tablets are given by mouth, so by mouth is the route. Generic drugs must be administered in the same route as brand name. Number 6, performance. All generic drugs must work the same way as brand name. Next slide. Here is a brand name drug that you may be familiar with. It's called Bayer Low Dose Aspirin. To the left, you will see its generic substitute being sold by CVS. Now, applying the 6 criteria mentioned previously, also listed on the left side, you can see on the packaging that the CVS generic brand meets similarities in strength. In the red arrow, you will see that both are 81 milligrams, dosage form and route. As you can see with the blue arrow, they are both enteric coated tablets given by mouth. And if you're wondering what enteric coated means, that just means that it's a safety coating around that tablet that protects your GI tract. And lastly, performance. As you can see in the green arrow, its purpose is to reduce pain as an NSAID or a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. As far as safety and quality are concerned, generic drugs must meet those standards before being sold on the shelf. So it is known that this criteria has been met. Next slide. Now that we've gone over 6 criteria and 5 myths for generic drugs, let's take a closer look at the similarities with brand name drugs. Next slide, please. Generic drugs are just as safe as brand name drugs. How, you might ask? Next slide. The safety concerns are known. The FDA states that generic drugs use the same active ingredients as brand name drugs and work the same way. So they have the same risks and benefits as brand drugs. Next slide. Another similarity with brand name drugs is that generic drugs are just as effective. Next slide. We can translate drug effectiveness to its quality. Generic drugs must meet the same high standards for strength, purity, and stability. Next slide. More specifically, strength is associated with drug effectiveness. The FDA requires generic drugs must be as high quality, strong, pure, and stable as brand name drugs. Next slide. Another similarity is that generics take the same amount of time to work as brand name drugs. Next slide. This refers to drug performance. According to the FDA, generic drugs work in the same way and in the same amount of time as brand name drugs. With that being said, I will hand it over to Kyle, who will continue our discussion. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Janine. Next slide, please. Okay, so dosage forms. What are dosage forms? So both brand name drugs and generic drugs are delivered in many different dosage forms, depending on the patient and also the medication. The FDA requires that generic drugs have the same dosage form as their brand name counterpart. So if you look in these photos, we'll go over a couple different types of dosage forms. So in the first photo here, these are suppositories and they're used for external administration. Medicine can be administered through liquid injections in the second photo. Medicine can also be administered in solid dosage forms, such as capsules and tablets. And lastly, oral dosage forms such as syrups, liquids, suspension are another way that we can administer generic and brand name medication. Next slide, please. Okay, so why do they look different sometimes? In the United States, trademark laws do not allow generic drugs to look exactly the same as their brand name drug. However, the generic drug must have the same active ingredients. So the colors, the flavors, and certain other parts may be different, but the active and inactive ingredients are the same in both the brand name and the generic form. Next slide, please. Generics cost less than brand name medication, and let's explain why. Next slide. Okay, so why are they cheaper? Lower cost does not mean that the generic form is less effective. So for generic drugs, there are no costly clinical trials as there are with brand name medication. There is no marketing that's done for generic medication, and there's lots of competition on the market between generic brands. Next slide. Okay, so initial exclusivities for new drugs. So exclusivity is a period of time when a brand name drug is protected from the generic drug competition. So there are different exclusivities for different situations. This is designed to promote a balance between new drug innovation and the competition that the brand name may see from generic drugs. So in most cases, the brand name drug will have a 5-year exclusivity from generic drug competition. Next slide. Okay, so as a group, we came up with an example and we just made up this drug, presentational, hence the presentation. So in this chart, we kind of compare with some figures here, the difference between brand name medication and generic costs. So as you can see, initial research, patent, clinical trial, and advertising costs are significantly higher than the generic manufacturer. The only cost that the generic We'll have to provide for is the manufacturing of the drug, and the total difference here is 32 million for the figures we compiled. So as you can see, there's a significant cost difference between brand name medication and generic form. Next slide. Okay, so generic drugs are FDA approved, and we'll talk about why. Next slide. So how are they FDA approved? We will go through these step by step slowly so we can perfectly determine. So number one, pharmaceutical equivalence. What does this mean? So the lab test results, both for the generic form and the brand form, must have the same indication, inactive and active ingredients, dosage form, strength, and expiration date. Number two, bioequivalence. Human volunteers must demonstrate the same safety and effectiveness for the brand name, for the generic medication as for the brand name. Number three, appropriate container and labeling. The labeling must match the brand name and the generic drug sold similarly, and they must be shipped properly. And number four, manufacturing inspections. The FDA inspection of facilities must meet the standards of correctness and consistency as it does for brand name manufacturing. Next slide, please. Okay, so today there are nearly 8 in 10 prescriptions are filled in the US are for generic drugs. So 80% of the time that you're visiting your pharmacy, you are receiving the generic form of the drug versus the brand name. And it's important to note that this generic form is the same quality and will give the same performance as the brand name.
Kyle, thank you so much. This is Dr. Gerber. I have a YouTube video, oops, apologize, back up here, that I want to show. Oh my gosh, I apologize. I am having some technical difficulties. I guess I am not showing that YouTube video. Let's see. Give me one more minute.
Take your time. You can probably close the PowerPoint and just grab that and then open it in the other app. Did it work? You're muted though, Dawn. Still muted, but
Oh,
there you
Kyle,
go.
the video is saying it's not available. I don't know why. It's an FDA video, so I don't know what's going on. So I'm gonna
Send it in the chat. I could probably find it on mine while you continue with the presentation.
It's not that important of a video. I just like my presentations to be multimedia. So let's see if I can put it in there. It's not working. That's all right. I'll turn the presentation back over to Kyle and let him continue. All right, Kyle, you want me to move on to the next slide?
Yes, you can go ahead. Okay, so myths about generic drugs that we've busted throughout the presentation. So let's just highlight some of the things we've talked about so far. So generic drugs, they do work as quickly as brand name drugs. Generic drugs also work as well as brand name drugs. They are as safe, they are as strong, and they are also FDA approved. Next slide, please. Okay, so resources for information. Who or what is the best source of information when you have a question about generic medication? So it's important that you contact your doctor, your pharmacist, or other healthcare workers for information on generic drugs, and specifically your pharmacist, because this is what we go to school for. This is our expertise. So when you have a question about medication, your pharmacist will always be able to give you the best advice and know the most about your medication. And you can also visit this FDA website, which has great information on generic medication. Next slide. Okay, so when you have questions about your medication, these are some of the best times that you can reach your community pharmacist with these questions. So in the morning from 10 to 11, afternoon 2 to 3, or in the evening after 8 even, is when these pharmacists will be able to best answer your questions about your medication. Next slide. And that will conclude our presentation. We thank you for listening, and we'll open up any questions that anybody has, and we'll be happy to answer them as a team. So.
Awesome. I think that, first of all, this was really informative, but I think that really what most people wonder, and then we can look at some of the questions that are in the chat and of course open up with the mics. Is there ever a reason to go with the brand name?
So this is Dr. Gerber. I am thinking about that too, because you kind of mentioned, when would my doctor ever say, hey, make sure you get the brand name? And there are a few medications that more important than brand name is consistency. So certain medications like anticoagulants, like warfarin or Coumadin or Jantoven, and Jantoven, we didn't even touch on this as a branded generic, so a little bit of a in between those two areas. There are thyroid medicine, and I'm trying to think if there's any other, but the thyroid and the anticoagulants or the blood thinners, I hate that term, but people may commonly know them as blood thinners. You want consistency on the manufacturer, because we do know that there are some little bits of difference. There is an allowance by the FDA for medications, and all medications, so batches to batches, even with this within the same manufacturer, are allowed to have a little bit of variance. Just, we're all human, it happens. So really consistency in manufacturers. So I help patients manage their warfarin or their Coumadin, and we just ask, if you're going to stay with the generic, stay with the generic. If you're going to stay with the brand, stay with the brand. So being consistent within that manufacturer. I will say that sometimes you will get providers who have strong feelings about generics versus brand. And I think that comes from a history of experience, and that they probably do have experience with products not being up to the level of inspection that the FDA asked them to be. And so maybe they had a prior bad experience. But more consistently is just being consistent with the manufacturer. So not jumping between manufacturers, like jumping between the brand and the generic, and then back to the brand and then back to the generic, so to speak. Does that
I think that answers it well. And I assume from that answer that there's never a time that they would say use exclusively the brand name drug to begin with then.
No, I can't imagine a situation like that I could answer just very generally in that aspect.
So one other question on that, and then we can address some of the ones in the chat. When a patent or trademark time lapses, in the sense, I think you had mentioned it's 5 years, does the is the drug ingredients shared, or they have to find it through the patent? Like, meaning, why do they have to share what's inside their medicine or drug to other companies?
So I do not have a law degree. And I think that is a little bit, that's patent law. And as far as I know, you can go to law school for specialized just in
Right.
patent law. So that is a bit outside of my.
I mean, Coca-Cola has figured it out. They don't share theirs.
I don't know.
I hear you. We have people to ask for that one.
Yeah,
Here's a question in the chat. If generic drugs are as good, and you might have answered this already, why do we need the brand name, which are so much more expensive? I've recently been told by Medicare that I have to change to the generic drug of Synthroid. The generic is far cheaper. So
can you repeat the first part of that question?
yeah, if they're just as good, then why do we need the brand name? Well, they're so much more expensive. In other words, I think that that's a two-part question in the sense, why do they still sell the brand name? Like, why would anyone pay the extra money? And then in specifically that specific drug of Synthroid, the generic is far cheaper. I assume it's not one of the ones that you mentioned that you would stick to one brand.
It actually is. Synthroid is for thyroid, and it.
Pinky, you better speak to your doctor about that one.
So the having brand names. So that does go back to that slide and that fake medication that we made up. So presentational, right? We do want to provide companies the opportunity to reimburse them essentially for investing in the research and the clinical trials and all those things that go into discovering new options. I could honestly say that if nobody had exclusivity, I don't think that we would have as many drugs as we do, because there would be no push to invest all those millions of dollars to not be able to share them essentially.
And that makes sense. But right. I guess the question is, why don't they lower their price after the market already competes?
That is an excellent question that I do not have the answer to. And I will tell you this, I think about it in very simplistic terms of, why do some women pay $2,000 for a purse and some women pay $10 for a purse? There are some people who just like to have that brand name on the purse, right? So
that's a good answer. I like that one.
Talking about me,
I
right?
want Bayer. I got you. Okay, so I'm going to continue with some questions from the chat, and then we'll take some of the ones from unmuted mics.
Sure.
So one of the things that was mentioned, that some of the generic drugs are manufactured in other countries. How are they monitored to assure that they meet required standards?
So this is an excellent question, and there are a lot of manufacturing in the past, I believe 20 years, has left the United States and moved to other countries, specifically China and India. And I will be honest, that is a big concern. That is a big concern because here in the United States, the FDA can do surprise visits. In fact, they do a lot of surprise visits to the manufacturing plants that are here in the United States. And obviously if you want to do quality checks and see what's really happening, you've got to have some surprise. Unfortunately, trying to do surprise visits in manufacturing plants in other countries just doesn't happen. It's not as easy to do surprise visits. They have to declare themselves according to the rules in those other countries. And it has come up as a concern that while manufacturing plants here in the United States may get visited by the FDA 2 or 3 times a year, they may be going to other countries for manufacturing every 2 to 3 years instead of 2 to 3 times per year. So I will be honest with you, it is a concern. I was actually a big fan of the previous FDA director, and that was one of his push was that we needed to be better about surprise visits and insisting on inspecting those overseas manufacturing plants after some things have come to light recently. Unfortunately, he did retire, and I don't know the opinions of the current FDA director. So I agree, there are some concerns there.
So on that, Arlene, one sec, just to follow up on this one, then you'll follow up with your question. So on that note,
I don't have a question.
because I'm reading the part of that chat question, the next question was a very similar question. So monitoring obviously sounds like we can always do better on that.
I don't
Are
have
the drugs
a question.
themselves marked what country they were manufacturing? Like if I look at a generic, if I walk into CVS and buy their Tylenol, is it going to say manufactured in China or Croatia or India?
Yeah, so yeah, they
I
have
actually have in my office.
where it was manufactured at, so you can find that information.
I go to India and I've been there for 30 years, and I want to tell you, you do not need a prescription. You can go to the chemist, you can get anything over the counter. In 30 years, I have never had a bad drug or a bad experience or an experience with a doctor giving me something that wasn't the same as what I have here. China worries me because you don't know what they put in anything. So I just wanted to add that about India.
Okay, so it's not necessarily on the package. Is that what like I'm looking at a Kroger Tylenol, but I don't see that it says, you know, where it's manufactured.
It should be
It
in
says
very,
distributed by.
Right, it says distributed by.
yeah, but there should be, it might be very, very fine print, manufactured.
Maybe it was on the box.
It was probably on the box.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, it will say where it was manufactured. Just like, you know, I'm wearing a shirt from, or I'm wearing a dress from Old Navy and it says manufactured in Thailand.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, and then what about one other question? Because I learned that a company that I found out about, they sell specifically these instruments to monitor temperatures and things like that as they're shipped cross country to pharmacies, actually. CVS is one of their big clients. So is that same? Because I look at this and it says, you know, it's got to be between 68 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Does that mean if this came from China, they're monitoring that as well? So it doesn't lose its efficacy?
Yeah, so I believe that only comes into play in the laws in the United States. So that is another big question of, are products that have to be stored under specific conditions, are they being stored under those specific conditions? And I will say this, that when a company says to the FDA, we want to be a manufacturing plant and we want to send our manufactured products to the United States, they sign a promise, essentially. They sign that, yes, we will let FDA inspectors into our facility. We will follow FDA rules. We will follow FDA guidance documents and things like that. The question is, in other countries, do they do that?
Right.
And it's
a
question.
But I do think, I think for everyone on here, I am assuming that even the brand name drugs are being made out of our country. So like, who are we fooling?
A lot. I think I said this a little bit earlier too, like in the past 20 years, a lot of manufacturing has left the United States. Right. A lot of the research and development happens in the United States, specifically in New Jersey. Like there are Pfizer, Bristol Myers Squibb, almost all of the big pharmaceutical companies, the research and development happens here in the United States and the manufacturing happens overseas. And we have lost a lot of manufacturing plants have closed down here in the United States and gone overseas. So that, you're right, brand names can also be manufactured overseas.
Right.
It's not like just generics are being manufactured overseas. Lots of manufacturing is happening overseas. My husband is a director of the pharmacy at a cancer center. And I was going to say, is it 4 years ago, there was a tsunami that hit Haiti, and turned out that like 80% of the saline, bags of saline that are just like part of everyday, hospital patients, were being produced in Haiti. And the tsunami had knocked out that manufacturing facility, and he had to figure out how to work around that, and him and all hospitals in the United States, because one manufacturer in this one country got hit by a natural disaster, and it just put drug shortages crazy on lots of drug shortages because of that.
Okay, a question in the chat, and then we'll take from open mics if anyone has. So we said that they are made out of the country. Is that actually a requirement that they specifically write what country they were made in? Meaning you're
Yes.
always going to find this.
Yes, or at least the pharmacist can find it. It may not end up on the bottle in your hands, but you can ask your pharmacist, and we are required to have that record of where that product came from.
Okay, and then one other question that was kind of answered in the chat by one of your students actually, but I'm going to repeat it because so fillers, the generic drugs are using the same active ingredients, but the fillers can be different. And in the question from Rena when she typed it out was basically those could cause different reactions in the sense of allergies. She also wrote about effectiveness. Would you agree that even effectiveness can be changed because of the fillers?
So
'Cause I know in the presentation, effectiveness should be the same.
yes. So I will say that generic drugs do not have to use the same fillers, but just because they don't use the same fillers doesn't mean that you couldn't have an allergic reaction to a filler in a brand name product either. So I do want to kind of make that clear as well, that you can have allergic reactions to fillers to brand name products, and that the fillers should not affect the effectiveness. So when we're talking about fillers, there's different, in fact, I had a whole semester of learning about different fillers and the different ways that all those things affect. And so if you want to think about it, you have different buckets, and in each bucket, there's a different type of filler. And so they can use the generic manufacturer, if the brand used a filler from bucket A, the generic company can also use a different type of filler, but also has to come from bucket A. Does that make sense? I know it's a weird way to describe it without getting into lots of chemical terms.
No, I think that makes sense. And if anyone has a question about that, they can definitely continue that conversation with their mic unmuted. Ethel, did you have a question?
Yes. The FDA may not go to China per se and watch the manufacturing, but who is supervising once it comes to this country, the batches and the consistency once it's here? That's question number one. And question number two, when you say temperature control, now over the summer, we had drugs mailed and they're sitting in the hot mailbox here. Now, I thought that was a problem.
Well, I just to jump in on that, because we also have had drugs mailed, and they wouldn't, certain ones that were temperature issues, they wouldn't have them delivered unless we were home between whatever window of time. So it's interesting that you had that in the reverse.
So that would be something like insulin or something that has to be refrigerated, but just normal pills, sometimes it says like aspirin to store it between a certain temperature. And they're not that sensitive, but they should be stored properly.
At least it wasn't chocolate.
So that actually is an excellent area of concern. And Rabbi Levi, my mother-in-law from Pennsylvania sent Easter bunnies, chocolate Easter bunnies to my children. And they were left in the metal mailbox, and to say that they were in April, they were no longer chocolate bunnies. They were just a box of goo. So we've had that happen.
chocolate
That is actually a big concern that pharmacy associations are trying to address, especially in the sense that Amazon is a huge company that you can buy anything from. And there's concerns that because Amazon is so huge and that they are not experts in shipping of medications, that there is that concern. But honestly, insulin should never sit in your mailbox. I agree with Rabbi Levi that you should be getting notices and a shipping notice, and the mailman should not leave that insulin just anywhere. That should have a special label on it. That being said, I will tell you it does happen. So I know for a fact that my husband has received chemotherapy that has to be at negative 40 degrees, and he opens it up and it's warm. And he's had to call the manufacturer and been like, hey, your delivery service left this, in the delivery bay. I can't use this. You just cost me, $50,000 of chemotherapy. So it does happen, unfortunately. But a lot of that is on the delivery service of maybe possibly not following directions of the product.
I guess, by the way, this is going to answer that meme that's been going around. If we only had Amazon distribute the vaccine, we would have had it, taken care of quickly. Well, they're not good at temperature control, so we can't use Amazon.
No, but do not check the drugs, the batches of drugs once they're in the country.
Yeah, so once they do come into the country, they do have to follow the FDA laws, because the FDA has laws that are in our border. So products that do come from come out from outside the United States do get batch checked by the FDA, and you can the FDA, it's actually pretty eye-opening that there are millions of drug products that come to the shores who get rejected by the FDA once they hit our shores and are not allowed into the country. It's a matter of public record, and you can find that on the FDA's website.
Well, that's good to know.
Jerry, did you have a question?
Well, there's a pharmacy in Connecticut that individually analyzes every pill they sell. I think the name escapes me right now, but they sell nationally, and it's a very nice idea. So they analyze everything specifically. Every pill they sell, every product is analyzed in their own facility, no matter where it comes from.
I don't think it'd be possible to do every tablet, because to check that you would have to break every tablet.
Not every tablet, but every
Batch,
shipment.
every shipment. Yeah, I could totally see where that would be.
By the way, Jerry, that leads us into just a plug for the next presentation of Dr. Gerber and her students, which is about why does it take so long to fill your prescription?
Yes.
And if you're in that pharmacy, it's going to take a day or something before you get your prescription filled. But any other questions? I saw Betty or Stan. I'm not sure. I saw you.
Okay. Well, I have two things. First of all, I'm a thyroid patient at Sloan Kettering, and they will only allow me to take Synthroid brand name. They will not allow me to take generic. Okay. So that's one thing. And the other thing is the cost of medication. Because I'm a teacher, our contract covers pharmacy. So under one contract that we had a few years ago, we got a 3-month supply of any medication for $1.
No, I think it was $2.
$2.
$1 a month.
$1 a month. So $3. So now we have switched to another company, and the cost is really not that bad.
It's $5 and $10.
Yeah. Of Synthroid.
That's for a brand name.
Synthroid is the only medication that I take a brand name for, and that's about, I think it's about under $20 for 3 months. So it's so arbitrary, and it's very upsetting.
I just wanted to mention that I'm looking at a label for atorvastatin from Walmart's, their Equate brand. And that one specifically says it comes from India.
It's on the bottle.
It's on the bottle. This one says product of China and the United States. Now, I don't know how.
Which is which?
I don't know how.
I want to.
Maybe the container comes from the United States and the product comes from China.
The raw ingredients may come from China and then be combined and made into the tablet here in the United States. So it is actually not uncommon to have that process as well, where the raw product is manufactured in China and then it's put together to make the medication here in the United
Really? Now, when you get I have a prescription here for a cough, benzonatate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this is, like some 20 or 30 tablets in a bottle. This doesn't tell you where it's from at all.
No, that would not, because that came from the pharmacy. So that's why you can ask your pharmacy and they would have a record of where that came from, but it would not end up being on your bottle.
Yeah.
Sammy, I actually would really like to call on you. I know you messaged me privately in the chat, but do you want to share your current experience?
I don't know.
Yeah, sure. With CVS.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I do work at CVS right now, and we do also deliver medications. We don't deliver personally. We package the medication and we ship it off to UPS, and they are the one who delivers the medication. At CVS, we do have a restriction of not delivering refrigerated items or control medications unless it's for same-day delivery, with the exception of control medications, which we cannot deliver at all. But refrigerated items would be like insulin or any of those related items. Those would be same-day delivery because that ensures that someone will deliver it on the day of that they pick up the medication, and means that someone needs to be home to pick up that medication and refrigerate it immediately. So there is that restriction there. But with capsules or tablets, it does not apply the same way. For that one, we do have like a 2 to 3 day delivery option, which is free. And again, it is delivered by USPS. And how they deliver it is not in our control. Sometimes they'll put it in your mailbox. I've seen the patients who pick it up at the front door, where they put it by the door where it's like usually shaded areas. So typically that helps with the product, but overall, since it's not highly regulated for same-day delivery, it's usually because it can withstand higher temperatures, unlike insulin products.
So I'm not endorsing, or we're not endorsing CVS or anything like that. We're just stating that's her personal experience. I had some friends who were drug reps for Pfizer about 15 years ago. And I asked them one time, I said, you bring samples. I said, well, how do you store those samples in Arizona? Like, your car gets to, 150 degrees. And they said, yeah.
Oh.
And I said, but even with hard tablets and definitely with capsules, that's going to be a problem. And they were like, oh, yeah, I don't know. We just store them in our cars and drive them around. And these are brand name products. And so I dug into it a little bit more, and I contacted the State Board of Pharmacy. And the State Board of Pharmacy said, well, the drug rep's car is not a licensed pharmacy, so we don't have any jurisdiction over them.
Oh.
And I called, they were like, try the medical board. And so I called the medical board, and they said, well, drug reps aren't a licensed physician, so we don't have any oversight in them as well. So I contacted Pfizer because they have a phone number you can call. And I said, I'm a pharmacist and I'm in Arizona, and, drug reps are bringing samples out that have been in their cars for weeks. And they were like, oh, yeah, if it's not our manufacturer, we don't have any jurisdiction. So
nobody's got
had any jurisdiction over the drug rep's car carrying brand name samples in their cars. So it really boils down to, once you get outside of a pharmacy or a health clinic, there's no jurisdiction. So even brand name medications, if they're kept in the drug rep's car and given samples, they don't have to have logs or anything like that either. So
Now,
definitely interesting.
is part of this that it's just they can't guarantee effectiveness? Is that really what it is?
I don't know how I kind of went down a rabbit hole, but never did figure out if there was any ramifications of drug reps medication samples getting to the patient that were ineffective because of the heat of being stored in drug reps cars.
So basically, your advice to us is, if a doctor offers us a sample instead of a prescription, then definitely don't take it after June.
Well, I will tell you one thing. When we are in Arizona, all our glassine capsules don't stick together. In New York, they all stick together. They clump. They clump.
The humidity, yeah.
But not in Arizona.
But
I will tell you this.
Some medications say store between X temperature and Y temperature, or no higher than. We usually don't have, the temperature can get cold here, but it usually in the house does not go down to 0. So you're not really in a problem there in New York. But
yeah.
I know that we had a friend who was in
Las
Vegas who used to store her cosmetics in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said, I had to put my lipstick on, so I went into the kitchen.
Herb, you wanted to say something?
Yes, years ago, my cardiologist was able to give me a medication that I take called Bisolic, and that stopped. In other words, the samples are no more. If they get a sample, they don't give it out. In other words, they'll probably give the doctor and give them the pitch about the particular product, but that product is not for consumption to the individuals.
They don't give
A
samples.
lot of discussion that I'm trying to think of there was a pharmacy organization, it might have been the Pharmacists Association, that was trying to push legislation about a decade ago because of this very issue of storage of drug samples, specifically asthma inhalers. Obviously when you have asthma, you need your medication to work. And they were don't quote me, I believe it was the American Pharmacists Association, tried to put through a national law saying that drug reps could not provide samples because of this very issue of them not being a regulated entity, and that they should be giving like vouchers. So instead of getting a bottle, the doctor could give the voucher, and then the voucher would go to the pharmacy, and that way it would be part of the patient's record at the pharmacy. You would know you were getting a temperature controlled, stored appropriately product, but that did not go through.
Of course not. The lobby against that probably was huge.
Yeah.
Question that came in the chat, and it might be something that you want to say, let's talk about at the next presentation, but it's, what are your thoughts on compounding pharmacies?
So I know there are really great compounding pharmacies, and I know that just like anything else in the world, there's probably not so great compounding pharmacies. I do highly recommend that there are certain products that should be compounded to make them easy for patients to take. I personally use a compounding pharmacy for my geriatric kitty's thyroid medication, because I have to put it in her ears because she won't swallow it. So the nice thing about that compounding pharmacy that I use, and I'm not endorsing it in any way, I'm just saying it's all glass. You can see everything. I could see that they had temperature logs. I could see that everything was clean. They had sterile hoods. I think if you're going to use a compounding pharmacy, ask to see their temperature logs, ask to to see, where they're compounding those things. They may not be able to take you in the back due to sterile issues, but, ask some of those questions. And, if they don't answer you or feel like, oh, why are you asking that? Don't bother. Find a new one.
Thank you. Any other questions? This was a lot of great information.
I had one quickie. When I was a kid, you went into a pharmacy and you gave them a prescription, and they usually made it for you.
Right.
It was compounded in neighborhood pharmacies. It was not a special place they went for compounding.
Right. And that's probably going to be something that we'll learn about next week. My great-grandmother, who I actually grew up with until she passed away, was a pharmacist in Russia. And that's what she always used to say. It's over there, you measured it out. It was like, it wasn't just counting the pill that was already manufactured and brought in.
Yeah.
So very different type of.
What is the difference between an apothecary and a pharmacy? Because we have a pharmacy in our town and we also have an apothecary. So is it just a stylistic name?
So an apothecary is actually not a legal anything.
Really?
Yes. In fact, so the legal term is pharmacy. The legal term is pharmacist. An apothecary, actually kind of a funny story. A lot of medical marijuana places were using the name apothecaries because they were allowed to. So you always have to look a little to the left a little bit or look a little bit to the right when you think you're going into an apothecary thinking it's a pharmacy.
It's funny you say that because we're in Woodstock.
I don't know where that is.
Well, Woodstock, New York is marijuana.
Oh, okay.
The famous Woodstock, which wasn't in Woodstock.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
An hour north of New York about.
Yeah, it's funny because one time we were in the South and we traveled with the Woodstock Chimes, which is not made in Woodstock, but it's called Woodstock. So somebody did something for us and I said, I have something for you from Woodstock. So the lady said, oh, marijuana. And I said, no.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. But I think to answer your question is you can actually look at the fact that pharmacists don't do compounding anymore like they did 100 years ago. But we also had a lot less medications. I know I'll include these numbers next week, but when I first started in pharmacy in 1996 as a Saturday girl, that was my actual title, Saturday girl. There just weren't that as many medications. There's been this just astronomical explosion of medications, and they've gotten more complicated, to be honest with you. You can't make the medications that we use. You can't have special coatings on them, like the enteric coating you saw on the aspirin. There's a lot of medications now that have specific mechanisms. So blood pressure medications that release a little bit of blood pressure medication, every couple of seconds. And so it's an intricate process to create the capsule that has that pH balance and things like that. So it's a very interesting, the history of pharmacy, of course, I am a pharmacist, so I find the history of pharmacy, but the history of pharmacy is really interesting when you figure a physician 100 years ago pretty much does the same thing a physician does now. A nurse 100 years ago pretty much does the same thing a nurse does now, but a pharmacist from 100 years ago we wouldn't even recognize each other on what we do day to day anymore.
It's really interesting. I like that. Izzy wrote, this is just a final comment. In South Africa, they called them witch doctors, not the pharmacists, I think. But I want to thank you all, Dr. Gerber and Kyle and Janine, who presented today. And of course, Sammy, thank you for your input. And was it Sammy who put the answer in the chat as well?
Yes.
So thank you. And we're looking forward to next week's presentation. So thank you.
Yes.